Well, the family of an Ohio teen is warning other parents about the deadly TikTok challenge that took the life of their 13-year-old. Right now, UT Health Austin's contact tracing department is in desperate need of help. The new law requires cities to at least enforce the state's ban on camping, but they could have even stricter rules. Now, Austin firefighters dealt with 50+ water-related calls, including several rescues. Workers with the airport say increased flight schedules and new routes are leading to an increase in passengers. Good evening, I'm Nabil Remadna. 4 days after testing positive for COVID-19, Governor Greg Abbott announces he has now tested negative. State lawmakers are preparing to vote Monday to take steps to make schools safer. It's legislative priority this year. Good morning, the time 4:41. Well, if your commute this morning takes you through I-35, as you sit in congestion, just think about this. One day soon, there could be major improvements coming to the road. Austin City Council is looking over a nearly $5 billion plan. Today, Travis County Commissioners will roll out the red carpet for the new Tesla factory.
A little surprised by that price tag, though.
In Austin, though?
Not so much, you're right.
Well, this isn't the first time we've talked about Icon's work. Earlier this month, the company worked with the Texas Military Department. Public schools in Texas are one step closer to having to display the 10 Commandments in every classroom starting next school year. Anyone camping illegally could be charged with a misdemeanor and fined up to $500. Finding green space on Rainy Street can be hard. It can sometimes feel like you're on an island surrounded by high rises and construction. But the city has plans to change that. But the creek looks much different now, no longer clear, but filled with a white, smoky substance. Just to show you Waller Creek off in the distance, you can see debris piling up, but take a look at this. This is large trees that were pushed up against branches here, causing more backups. Absolutely. With Texas going into the SEC, that means big weekends every weekend. That's big for the bars and restaurants. They're gearing up. But take a look at this. The student line here, it opens at 5:30 a.m. The game's tomorrow, and students are already lining up outside here, getting ready for the games. If we turn off the lights, you can see just how dark it gets out here without the lights that we're providing. It's pitch black and can cause some problems. Randy Street's about probably 200 yards from where we are along the Butler Trail and near Lady Bird Lake. It's uneven surfaces, some going down, declining towards the water. Here, and we all know how important those crossing guards are. Whenever you come to a crosswalk, it's always best to look both left and right before you cross, and if there's not a cross guard, well, it's hard to stop traffic like these cars that run through these areas. Luckily, this guy going very slow. So when we do cross, you know, it's good to have someone there to make sure we're safe. We've seen a lot of things just like this. These are very large branches that have fallen down. I also want to point out another issue. We've seen trees toppling over. If you take a look down the street here we're on in West Austin, you can see this massive tree outside of a home. No damage to the front of the home that we can see. A good pair of shoes can take you a long way.
Round Rock ISD, how may I help you?
And in Round Rock ISD,
the best way to blend is a nice pair of kicks and a good backpack.
You see, blending is important. If you've ever walked a mile in Elizabeth Hino's shoes, you'd understand why.
Myself, I couldn't afford Nikes and Vans. That's not something that, was in my budget.
So when her daughter asked for new Vans, Elizabeth, a single mom who was experiencing homelessness, tracked down a pair from a local thrift store.
I gave them to her and she went to school the next day. Look at my new Vans, telling everyone about her new Vans. It was her first pair she had ever had. And one of the little girls said, "Those aren't new." And I remember her coming home and it hurt her.
If you're wearing like the cheap shoes, the kids know it's like a marker and we don't want to do that.
Desiree Viramontes helps families in the district who are experiencing homelessness. Providing new shoes is just one small part of her job. You'll also find her making sure students get food for the weekend, maybe some art supplies, or a new blanket.
We have weighted blankets, quilted blankets, fleecy blankets.
In Round Rock ISD, there are currently hundreds of students who are experiencing homelessness.
I've never had 703 in November. I've never seen numbers like this.
Let that sink in. 703. Desiree says one family told her those small handouts make a big difference.
She's like, before I was in this program, I was having to spend $50 a week on groceries, and now I don't have to do that because they eat at the school and then you provide all the other meals for our family.
When we think homelessness, it's easy for us to assume that's people we see living on the streets as we drive around. but that's not always the case.
They could be living in a motel or hotel, they could be in transitional housing, they could be in a traditional shelter.
I remember needing the support and not being sure if I could reach out and ask for it.
And it's a good thing she did.
You only need a tiny bit, like Elizabeth just needed like one hand up.
She's now working in the place she visited so often and handing out new clothes, food, and of course, new shoes.
We're just thankful to be where we're at now.
Nabil Remadna, KXAN News. Llano, Texas. A mostly quiet town of about 3,000 people. But on this day,
you don't get to choose who gets to read what!
It was anything but quiet as debate over the Llano County Library system reached full volume.
And where is their parent?
Discussions over what books should be available in the Llano County Library system have been ongoing since December of 2021.
Personally, I don't really want the library to be closed, but if that's the only way that we can keep smut and stuff out of our children's hands, then close the library.
Irvin Light concerned over books he says are inappropriate for kids. He was hoping those books would be removed.
When you have sexually explicit material in an area where a 5-year-old can get a hold of it, that's wrong.
Suzette Baker.
Because it's our basic right. It's everybody's right in America to pick up a book and read whatever book you want.
A former librarian in the county. She was fired after she says she didn't remove some books.
In their opinion, if they say a book like this, which is a YA plus book, which has more adult things in it, if they don't want their children to read that, then they need to come to the library with their children.
This dispute ultimately led to a special meeting Thursday in Commissioner's Court.
This action item will include discussion and action regarding the continued employment and/or status of the Llano County Library System employees and the feasibility of the use of the library premises by the public.
About whether to continue or cease operations of the current Llano County Library System.
These materials cannot be in that library. It's destroying my family.
Y'all are public servants, and I believe that the large majority of Llano County wants to keep this library.
Commissioners then broke off into a private meeting to discuss, as some broke out into song. After about 30 minutes of discussion, the decision was made.
We have ruled to remove the agenda item. The library will remain open. We will try this in the courts, not through social media or through news media.
In Llano County, Nabil Remadna, KXAN News.